Hey everyone, welcome. So the market has changed, and predominantly it's changed dramatically since COVID. I think a lot of us were wondering what the effect of COVID would have on the legal market in particular, and what's happened in the post-COVID world. So let's look at some of the issues that have come up. We're going to look at what are the problems we need to solve, understanding the current market, what are the sources of talent, what are candidates' expectations, what the hell is going on with salaries, key challenges and some potential solutions. So there's no doubt that COVID-19 changed the landscape for the workplace, but particularly in the legal world. If I was to have had this conversation 5 years ago and say, hey partners, let's have some of your staff working 2-3 days at home, we would have laughed at each other. I mean, presenteeism was a huge part, it was very hierarchical, and it took a global pandemic for lawyers to be able to see that their staff can work from places outside their desk, particularly when they've got 6-minute units to report each day. We've got probably the most accountable structure in place, but still there was that mindset. Moving away from presenteeism to flexibility, and looking at the scarcity of talent and who has the bargaining position. And that's an ever-changing model. So where do we find top talent? How do we attract them? Do we have a compelling employee value proposition? And are our systems set up for success? And number 4 seems to be one of the biggest obstacles, and it's such a shame because that's the one we actually have control over. So let's have a quick look at the market. The most recent ABS statistic says that unemployment is at 3.8%, so we're at record lows. So no wonder it's so hard to find people, because we're pretty much at full employment. 54% of HR leaders expect their headcount to grow, even though there are storm clouds brewing. When I meet with, and I regularly do meet with recruiters in a lot of other industries, they're all crying at the moment. The IT people, the engineers, but legal seems to have bucked the trend. We seem to be still very buoyant. The average time to hire is 40 days, and the average cost can be up to $24,000. So you need to do this process well. The biggest areas for demand: banking, finance, corporate, property, insurance, commercial litigation, employment, and I'd probably add family law to that. A lot of couples spent way too much time together in lockdown, and now they're feeling the repercussions. The workforce shortage, there's going to be, they estimate by next year, 1.5 million unfilled jobs in Australia. More jobs than people to do it. And the importance of getting it right. Hands up if you've ever worked with a lemon, some pain in the butt that's been in your team. You know what a disaster it is. And the average cost of that whole exercise can be anywhere between 50 to 200% to replace them. By the time you've lost good staff because of toxicity, or you've lost good clients because they've done something wrong. So you've got to be very careful to make the process streamlined and hire the right people. So the practice area is generating the most revenue for firms, and all the slides are available. So you see transactional areas like business and commercial are very high, litigation and mediation, property, family, wills, estates, and then we drop down to other areas like PI and insurance. Shouldn't be too many surprises there. Has anyone got something that their firm's particularly busy on that is unrepresented in this graph? No niches? Okay. Now, SEEK every few years does the hardest roles to fill. So this is everything from your mechanics, to your plumbers, to your doctors, to your astrophysicists. It's every industry across all of Australia, and 10 out of the top 20 are for lawyers. And lawyers are such a small percentage of the overall workforce, but they're the hardest to find, which is why the legal recruiters in the room get every dollar they deserve. So Altman did a survey recently, and the key findings were that wages growth was 4.1% in legal compared to the national average of 3.3%. 44% of firms plan to increase their headcount, and 60% expected to grow. So where do we find lawyers? Okay, so traditional methods are advertising. SEEK keeps ratcheting up their prices each year. They don't necessarily deliver better results, but because they've got a monopoly, they take advantage of it. It's a bit of a lottery. When you do get candidates through SEEK, They're usually active candidates, so they're probably not just sending their CV to you, they're sending it to anyone else with a similar job. So it's a lottery, and it's an expensive lottery. So we do it, but we find we have to kiss a lot of frogs before we find any princesses. Social media is great. I would take a leaf out of Cullen's book and post particularly on LinkedIn, but there are some of the other boards are doing it in different industries, different verticals. You know, for example, if you're after something maybe blue collar, TikTok or Facebook might be your thing, but I think LinkedIn is the horse you need to back if you're doing legal. Word of mouth, by far the best source. If you can get a recommendation, nobody is going to send you a lemon. Ask around. If you're a litigator, ask a barrister who they've seen in court. And in fact, I think what a lot of us in the legal recruitment profession doing is we're just word of mouth amplified, because we go into our networks and find out who's good and bring them back to our clients. Alumni associations and obviously recruiters. Ads, I think the problem with the ads that aren't attracting people is we're writing it from our perspective. It's these are the 10 things we want you to do. Remember, the typical model is somebody is on a bus on their way home, they've had a crappy day, their partner's yelled at them, they want to get out of there. They're going to be scrolling through thousands of ads. Catch their eye. Have something that's going to be about them. What's in it for me? And that's the key to any advertising. Appeal to their emotions, list the benefits, why come and work with your firm? What's your employee value proposition? The AFR did a nice survey last year. What is it that is the most important? If I was to go to you as a candidate and say, you're going to take less money, but what would still make you move jobs? Work-life balance came up number one. Enjoyable work. So if somebody's just going to be doing plaintiff workers' comp for the rest of their lives, they're probably going to get itchy feet after 3 or 4 years. So make sure there's stretch in it for the individual. Sense of fulfillment. People want to feel like they're working with good people for good causes, and that's where something like your corporate social responsibility comes in. Very important. A chance for personal development and professional development of growing in the role, and flexibility. So that's become a really important one. And in fact, the most important down here, you'll see in the graph, the popular work benefit, 67% say they want flexibility. So the genie is not going back in the bottle. The firms that we're working with that are asking for us to find people who want to work 5 days in the office are shrinking their potential talent pool from there down to there. And if somebody's currently in a role where they've got flexibility, it's very hard pressed to move them to a role where there isn't. What are the drivers? We've covered this. This is just different source from Seek. Nothing particularly interesting here other than the fact that salary actually came after work-life balance. What are the benefits that firms are offering to entice people? Performance bonus, work from home, that's pretty much standard now. Flexible hours, additional annual leave. So some people who maybe have parental responsibilities and have lots of school holidays, they can buy extra annual leave. So maybe they'll have 6 weeks annual leave, 4 weeks paid, 2 weeks unpaid. Sign-on and retention bonuses. Last year we saw a flurry of sign-on bonuses as talent was short. That has now dissipated. Salary packaging, EAPs, professional development and employee share plans. Some of the ideas that we talked about to attract people, but also to retain them. I didn't have time to add Tiffany's bracelets, but that will be up the next time I present.
I think they've discontinued it anyway.
Oh, did they? Okay, fair enough.
Very recent.
So workplace flexibility, 95% want to work from home. 78% of firms are offering that, and encouraging a better work-life balance is key. Perks, we've discussed those. Salary data, this is the photo that everyone seems to want to get. This is the Outma survey, I think, is the best survey by none, because a lot of the surveys that are put out by agencies are based on a bit of guesswork and estimation, whereas the Outma survey is done by law firms sending actual data of the salaries of their staff that's anonymised, aggregated and collated. So if you're not doing that as a law firm, I'd recommend next year getting involved with Outma and submitting your data to the survey, because I believe you also get a free copy of the survey if you contributed data. The key challenges, the demand in the market. So there's still a lot of jobs for lawyers and not enough quality lawyers to get that job. It's candidate short market. You need to have strong attraction strategies. Beware of counter offers. The number of times I thought a deal was done, and on a Sunday night, the phone flashes up and it's the candidate who's meant to start the next morning, and you find out that they've taken a counter offer. Last year was just absolutely weird. It was just off the charts. We had a young lawyer came to us maybe 3 years out who was on 120,000, not a bad wicket. He wanted to move in-house. We got him a job in-house, an industry association. They offered him 130. That was a nice lift for him. He was really happy. His boss didn't want to lose him, tried to counter offer him once, twice. On the third time, offered him $200,000. Now, he's not doing any harder work. He's not actually even leaving his desk. He's sitting there doing the exact same thing. And do you want to know the kicker? He left. Within 2 months, he'd left to go in-house. So all you're doing is kicking the can down the road. Return to office, there's a generation gap, and that's kind of a loaded question that I threw to Katie before. We're finding some of the younger lawyers are more keen to be in the office more. They feel like they can learn more, they enjoy the water cooler talk, and they also like the social aspect. I've got 2 fairly junior staff with us, and they come into the office every day, and I'm like, you've got the flexibility, we're open, what do you want? And they go, I don't want to work from my kitchen desk with 3 other flatmates. They want to come into the city, which is interesting. Missing skill set. There are some lawyers that are complaining to me because a lot of lawyers during COVID weren't around getting the exposure, that they're not at the same level that their equivalents were, say, 3 or 4 years before. So work from home has impacted on the exposure that young lawyers are getting. AI, we've done that to death. And the really interesting thing is the mutual recognition program that's happening with the free trade agreement with the UK. So the Law Council just met, I think, last month, and they'll be planning that through. It'll probably take a year or 2, but hopefully we get to the stage. It's the same with New Zealand, where lawyers from the UK, particularly it's England and Wales, can re-qualify automatically in New South Wales and other Australian jurisdictions. The flip side means that also a lot of Aussie lawyers might be heading over to England and Wales. So it might even itself up. But it does allow transferability. Please.
When is that full mutual recognition begin?
So they're still in discussion stage. So the first discussion went through. They're saying that they're going to report back to the committee by the end of this year. So I'd say by the time ducks are lined up, it's going to be a couple of years. Unless anyone knows anything further on that. That's just what I'm getting from the AFR.
I went, Jason, to the meeting of that at Ashurst, and there was 20 odd managing partners in the room with the people from the heads of the Australian and the English government representatives, and I hadn't understood it, but literally if people come here at a very senior big firm and they're only likely to do M&A activity, they still have to study how to do conveyancing and family law to qualify here, and people were up in arms about it, so I think that'll be changed pretty quickly.
Yeah, so there's what's called the Priestley 13, and you need that to do those. So what they might do is say, we're going to be a little bit more strategic about it, and what happens is if somebody's only going to do that type of thing, we might tailor it so they don't have to do that. But I think they'll still have to do things like federal constitutional law, because the UK doesn't have a constitution. So here's one of the solutions that we've looked at is we've spoken to a lot of clients at depth and say, well, where are the problems? Where are the log jams? And one of them is speed. So you've got a job, by the time the partners give it, you put it on Seek for 4 weeks, or you go out to an agency, it's too long. The good candidates are getting snapped up. So with a couple of people in this room and some friendly recruiters that I'm consulting with, including 2 or 3 people in this room, we're developing a new strategy to basically get rid of the log jam. So to open up and have a transparent process. So we've built what we've called the legal talent pool, which is in beta at the moment. So we're inviting any candidates that we speak to allow themselves to be put up on a database that's public facing. So it's all anonymised. AI will summarise their CV, it will tell you details, for example, where they want to work, how much they want to earn, whether they want full-time, part-time, practice areas, all those sorts of things. And clients can basically self-serve. They can go on, they see a great commercial litigator, they press a button, we get a notification, we contact that litigator and say, hey, it's Blogs & Co, are you interested? And we can press a button and release the CV. So you could be able to look at it 24/7 and be able to see CVs within 30 minutes usually. And we're inviting other recruiters to join that so we can actually make this an easier, more disruptive place for the market for you to be able to find that talent a lot faster. Any questions on any of that, please fire them away.